In this tutorial, we're going to cover configuring Rclone, which is a command line interface tool to work with the cluster S3 storage. So just for a bit of context, S3 stands for Simple Storage Service, which is a storage service that is provided by Amazon Web Services or AWS, commonly referred to as AWS S3. And AWS S3 service became very popular. They had a REST API that allowed other tools to interface with their storage to provide different ways to transfer data. And so that REST API became popular, and other tools have been developed that are S3 compatible, meaning that they work with the API and therefore work with the official AWS S3 storage. On the cluster, we run a service called Ceph, and through that, Ceph can offer S3 storage or S3 compatible storage that also works with the API, and therefore any tools that work with the REST API for S3 also work with the cluster storage. One of those tools that we'll be talking about in this video is Rclone. And so if you're out on one of our Jupyter Hub instances, you should be able to go to the notebook container image and you'll find the kube notebook. And the kube notebook has Rclone pre-installed for you. That way you don't have to go and download it. It's already installed. So just start the kube notebook. And once that starts up, you're going to go to the plus icon, either one of these, to get to the launcher page. So if you're not on the launcher page, just click plus. And once you're on the launcher page, you'll want to click terminal. So we're just going to walk through the Rclone configuration process here. So I'm just going to type Rclone, hit enter, and that'll show you some of the documentation, some of the help text. What we want is this one right here, which is Rclone config, and that's going to allow us to configure Rclone to be able to work with the S3 compatible storage on the cluster. So we're going to type Rclone config, and in this case, it realizes that I don't have any what it calls remotes. So just to define that term in the Rclone context, a remote is a remote location, a service that you can talk to and store data at. And so we're going to define a new remote. So I'm going to type in n, hit enter. And this process may or may not change in the future, but it should more or less look the same, hopefully. And so if you're viewing this in the future and things look slightly different, hopefully most of what we go through still applies. I'm going to name my first one S3-1. Your remote name is something that you're going to either be typing out or putting in your scripts, whether that's Bash scripts or Python or code or whatever it may be. So I would recommend something meaningful but short. So I'm just going to do S3-1 and hit enter. This is an important piece. So now Rclone is asking us what storage we want to talk to. Here's all the various options that it is compatible with. And that's sort of the benefit of Rclone is that if you're using multiple of these services, and if you learn Rclone and the way that it works with files and data transfers, then you don't have to go and learn the different ways that all of these services do their data transfer and different tools to work with them. You can just use one tool. In this case, we're only going to be going through S3 since that's what we provide on the cluster. So we're using option 4 here in this instance. These numbers change as they roll out support for different services, but you can see that there's Amazon S3 compliant storage providers, including AWS, and right here for us is Ceph. That's what we use to provide S3 storage. So this option may change in the future, but I'm going to type 4 because 4 maps to the Amazon S3 compliant option. Hit enter. Next, it's going to say, out of all of those services that are S3 compatible, which one do you want me to configure? And I'm going to tell Rclone that I want option 4 because that maps to Ceph object storage. That is what backs our S3 storage. Next, it's going to ask for credentials. So I'm going to hit 1 and I'm going to enter those live. So if you get credentials from us, you'll get that in a secure email. There will be a link that we send you that expires. So you want to make sure that you create a secure copy of those, treat them like a username and password. Okay. In this case, I am going to just copy some dummy credentials because uh, for the purpose of recording this video, it shows everything in plain text, so I don't want to record any real credentials, right? So I'm entering in the access key ID, which, yep, and then I'm also going to enter in the secret key as well. Of course, these are fake. You would enter your access key ID, your secret access key. Next, we're going to select option 1. And at this point, it's asking for the endpoint for the API. So like I was saying, the REST API is how things travel over the internet for data transfers. The endpoint is the URL, the base URL that it's going to be making these REST API calls to. So if you're on a Jupyter Hub instance like this on the cluster, you're going to use, and in the email that we send you, there's going to be a note that says on Nautilus or internal. And that one is what you will use if you're on the cluster. On the cluster could be, like I said, a Jupyter Hub instance like this, could be VS Code, could be a batch job, etc. So if you're scheduling onto the cluster, you will use the internal endpoint. And so I am currently doing that. So I'm going to configure the internal endpoint on this uh, for the purpose of this recording. However, if you are on another server, on a desktop or laptop or what have you, there is another option. So I'll just paste that in so you can see it, which is an HTTPS option. And so just copy that, paste that in. Um, Technically, this would work internally as well, but the performance would be better if you're on the cluster to just use the internal one, better performance. Um, if you're external to the cluster, like I was saying, desktop, laptop, what have you, different server, a cloud service, whatever, you're going to use the external option. So there we go. We're going to type in the internal option here and hit enter. Next, it's going to ask for a location constraint. That doesn't apply, so we just hit enter. And in this case, we're going to press option 1. This is asking for the access controls, and essentially we want the owner, you, to have full control over everything in your bucket. Bucket is a S3 term. It's sort of like a top-level folder, top-level directory. Now, if you have collaborators, what we can do is we can add them to your bucket afterwards. So just let us know if you need that functionality. And we're going to select option 1. We're not going to encrypt things. Things that go over internally are not at risk. Things that go over public internet, HTTPS, they will be secured in transit, but we don't. The object storage on the cluster does not support encrypted data. So make sure to select option 1. Your data is still secure. It's just you don't have to do that extra step basically because it's not supported. If you do select that option, you will get weird errors and things will not work. So just when you get to that one, choose option 1 or none, just in case the option numbers change in the future. I digress. Next, we're going to be hitting in option number 1 here as well. We're not going to enter in a KMS ID. So just 1 and hit enter. And now we've come to the end of it. We do not want to edit the advanced config, so we're going to type in N, hit enter. There we go again. So it's going to say, here's what you've done. You've configured a new remote. Type is S3, provider is Ceph. Access key ID should match what we emailed you and what you have in a secure note. Same for the secret access key. If you're internal in a batch job, Jupyter Hub, what have you, you're on the cluster basically. You use the internal endpoint that looks like this. Otherwise, if you're outside the cluster, you will use the external endpoint, and the ACL should say private. Then it's going to say, do you want to keep this configuration? And we're going to type in Y and hit enter. Then it's going to show you that new remote that you just defined. and now you can start using it. So that's pretty much it for the configuration portion. Of course, what I've done here is not going to work because I entered in dummy credentials, um, but we'll get into how to use Rclone, copying files, listing files, deleting and removing files and directories, etc. in the next video. So thanks for watching.